Hello everyone and welcome back to the Blackford Book Club and another volume of my essential film reviews collection. Thanks for being there. This is a very long one, so strap in. It's also a very complicated one to read. This isn't my gig, as I've said a million times before. I'm just fooling around in front of a video camera, trying to get some sales and some traction towards my ebooks, my actual books that are behind me. And I'm just larking around, trying something new, and I'm just trying. But I'm never ever going to read this to my own satisfaction. I'm also aware that these nighttime sessions, you can see the reflection in my glasses. I hope this doesn't put anyone off. If it does, put something in the comments below. My budget is zero. I've already overspent my budget. There's nothing I can do. It bugs the hell out of me. I may record this again tomorrow in the daytime, who knows? It depends how this particular session goes, but it doesn't matter because it's just you and it's just me. It's just me and you. So kick off your shoes, relax, have a glass of wine and hopefully chortle and guffaw and titter at the way I try to pronounce these words and I stumble my way through my own writing. I hope you're well out there. Thanks for being there. Thanks for subscribing and thanks for all the lovely comments. Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason and plot. There are of course those that do not want us to speak. I expect even now orders are being shouted into telephones and men with guns will soon be on their way. Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning for those that will listen, the enunciation of the truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there? Cruelty and injustice, intolerance and oppression, and where once you had the freedom to object, to think and speak as you saw fit, now you have censors and systems of surveillance coercing your conformity and soliciting your submission. A revolution without dancing is a revolution not worth having. Thus is V. Hugo Weaving, a masked revolutionary hero who, whilst being a loquacious and eloquent orator, is also an expert of subversion, confusion and anarchy, frustrated and an oppressive government taking over and taking complete control of the lives of the UK populace. A freedom fighter seeking to right the wrongs for both the population as a whole, as well as wreaking revenge on high-profile personalities that, as the narrative unfolds, clearly deserve their comeuppance. V is many things, but anything other than the terrorist portrayed by the oppressive government and their mouthpiece, the British television network. Their job is to report the news, not fabricate it. That's the government's job. However, V is quickly painted as the villainous terrorist and the nation's newest threat, but by breaking into the very network TV that provides the government-sponsored news, V is able to make an immediate connection with the population and, more importantly, to make them think beyond what is presented to them as fact and to question the very fabric of the oppressive, surveillance-filled society that surrounds them. V is an everyman, an idea, a purpose and a figurehead for rebellion and revolution against the suffocating dystopian society of a near-future England under the control of a neo-fascist government that watches and hears everything via their suffocating surveillance and nightly curfews. V is also partial to Shakespeare, to dancing to Cry Me a River or The Girl from Ipanema, cooking and retaking valuable pieces of artwork from the aptly titled Ministry of Objectionable Ownership. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Here's the opening 13 minutes of a 2-hour film which sets the scene for an incredible cinematic debut feature from James McTeigue, as well as introducing a sizable cast of characters to come. V for Vendetta opens with ominous black and white toned opening titles, including a reference to DC Comics, on whose graphic novels the film is based. Against the background of a completely black slide, the English folk rhyme of Remember, Remember, the 5th of November is recited as a narration by an unseen lady before this is dissolved into a sepia-coloured reenactment of the foiled plot of Guy Fawkes in 1605 to blow up the Houses of Parliament. The reenactment follows his capture and eventual public hanging before a completely black screen returns for the end of her narration as she presciently announces that ideas have worth and value, that they do not bleed, and that a single man taught her the value of ideas and truth, and she will never forget this man or what the 5th of November represents ever again. As the narration ends, a blood-red and fiery title slide announces V for Vendetta. We cut to the first of many television rants from Shock Jock, an all-round odious creature, Lewis Prothero, Roger Allen, the self-titled Voice of London on the British television network, as he espouses violent retribution on the United States of America by invoking the Boston Tea Party revolution of the 18th century and the reasons for their current demise in the Western world as a lack of godliness. During Prothero's obnoxious continuing rant to camera, the camera cuts brilliantly between a young woman and an older man sitting at their respective dressing tables, preparing and dressing for an evening out. Both of the unnamed characters have their televisions on and continue dressing almost simultaneously as the clever cuts between them display. Neither is particularly watching the repulsive actions of Prothero, but as the young lady finishes brushing her hair, we cut for the first time to the real hero of our film. Facing his dressing table mirror, V, Hugo Weaving, affixes his distinctive mask for the first time, whilst Prothero prophetically exclaims that someone is watching over this country. However, V is clearly not the someone he has in mind. Meanwhile, V is now fully dressed, all in black, and the still unnamed young lady equally fully dressed and looking at Prothero's continuing rant with utter disdain. The problems of the country can be attributed to immigrants, Muslims, homosexuals and terrorists. But thankfully both the young lady and V have had enough of his vile verbiage and swiftly turn off their respective televisions before the young lady, looking at a nearby clock and realising she's already late, rushes out of her apartment. We cut to loudspeakers informing the local residents of the curfew that is now in effect and for your protection, before quickly cutting between the footsteps of both the young lady and V as they make their way through these same streets. The young lady, fearing to walk straight ahead, instead cuts through a nearby alleyway. However, she walks straight into the arms of a waiting finger man, or a member of the government's secret police. Quickly the young lady is surrounded on all sides by two further fingermen, and fearing for her life, produces a small can of mace or pepper spray. The odious fingermen threaten her with sexual violence if she doesn't acquiesce to their needs, and she is quickly overwhelmed and can only cry out for help. Enter our hero. He dispenses quick, swift and severe justice to the fingermen, with the young lady cowering in a corner, and while still brandishing the mace and pepper spray, asks who he is. V, forever with a flair for the dramatic, answers thus. Here we go. Voila! In view, a humble vaudevillian veteran cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate. This visage, no mere veneer of vanity, is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, vanished. However, this valorous visitation of a bygone vexation stands vilified and vowed to vanquish these venal and virulent vermin, vanguarding vice and vouchsafing the violently vicious and voracious violation of volition. The only verdict is vengeance, a vendetta, held as a votive, not in vain, for the value and veracity of such shall one day vindicate the vigilant and the virtuous. Verily, this vichyssoise of verbiage veers most verbose. So let me simply add that it is my very good honour to meet you, and you may call me V. Dumbfounded, the young lady can only nervously ask, "Are you a crazy person?" To which V laughs and responds that they will certainly think so. However, he has a question of his own. Who is this beautiful young lady that he's rescued? Evie, Natalie Portman, is the frightened reply, to which V simply says, E.V. Of course you are. V doesn't believe in coincidence and is convinced they were destined to meet on this very evening, and assuring Evie that he means her no harm, he would like to invite his new companion to a very special musical performance, and albeit reluctantly, Evie finally agrees. We cut to a brightly lit London sky, with V and Evie admiring the view from a rooftop opposite the Old Bailey. However, she remains sceptical about any musical performance, and notes that V doesn't have any instruments. V then swiftly produces a conductor's baton from beneath his dark cloak, and dedicates the impending concerto to Madame Justice, in honour of the holiday she seems to have taken in these parts. As Big Ben chimes, signalling midnight, and the first seconds of November the 5th are upon us, V begins majestically waving his wand, yet there is no music. A quick cut to Evie again portrays her scepticism, however slowly, growing louder and louder across the multitude of the government's oppressive loudspeakers that fill the neighbouring streets, come the strains of Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture, to the bemusement of both Evie and the residents now roused from their slumbers and filling the streets below. As the overture reaches its crescendo, V strikes at the Old Bailey with his wand, and the old lady topples from her perch amid a huge explosion that continues to rip the entire building to pieces. And with fireworks surrounding the huge explosion that's engulfing the building, the scene ends with Evie's open-mouthed astonishment and fireworks rising into the night sky in a colourful shape of a V. A quick cut follows, and as the breathless opening 13 minutes reaches its conclusion, we are greeted with an extreme close-up of High Chancellor Adam Suttler, John Hurt, dispensing orders via the telescreen to his dark-suited government investigators, namely Finch, Stephen Rea, Creedy, Tim Pigott-Smith, Dominic, Rupert Graves, Dashcombe, Ben Miles, and Etheridge, Eddie Marzan. His orders are simple: find the culprits, add the 1812 overture to the blacklist. Memory hole, anyone? And for Prothero to spin the explosion of the Old Bailey into a controlled demolition. He simply won't tolerate chaos returning to the streets of London. The terrorist must be caught, and, as always, England prevails. Although constantly masked, Hugo Weaving, or Agent Smith from the Matrix trilogy if you prefer, is superb as the loquacious, elegant and indeed eloquent V, and finds a partner in crime with Evie, whom Natalie Portman infuses every last sinew into a boisterous, never giving up young lady her parents would be proud of. Stephen Rea is superb as the meticulous government investigator Finch, whom it's clear from the outset is anything but a compliant officer of the government and going against the grain, a truth seeker above all else. But of the roles not already noted, it is to Stephen Fry we turn for the darkly comedic twists needed in this dystopian tale as TV host Dietrich. Dietrich has his own agenda to rail against both the overbearing TV network for whom he works and the government to whom he opposes. However, it's the comedy and warmth that shines through in his performance, and this is perfectly encapsulated in his Benny Hill-style TV mock-up of the current governmental regime that flies in the face of everyone concerned. It lightens an otherwise very dark, in every sense, film, and his lament of, "You wear a mask for so long, you forget who you were beneath it," perfectly summarises a truly wonderful, if disturbing, film. Written as a graphic novel by Alan Moore and David Lloyd in 1982, and adapted for the screen by the Wachowskis, this debut feature from James McTeigue immediately entered the public consciousness and zeitgeist after its release in 2005, and 9 years later it still retains its power to shock and shine a pertinent light on the events of today. The Guy Fawkes mask, worn throughout the film by V, has now become synonymous the world over with its adoption by anti-government and anti-globalisation groups such as Anonymous, the multitude of Occupy groups and the ever-growing 99% groups as a marker, and no doubt in due deference to, the film's stance against oppressive and fascistic governments in collusion with big business, coupled with the mass surveillance society we all now live under. The film references and takes inspiration from a great number of sources, and none more so than George Orwell's eponymous novel 1984, with eerie parallels to today's surveillance and CCTV spying society, through to a single dictator barking out orders via a telescreen to an apathetic populace. The dictatorial government here has a slogan of strength through unity, unity through faith, which is another eerie parallel to 1984's odious War is Peace. Freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. There are obvious and distasteful parallels to the German Nazi Party and their expulsion of immigrants and homosexuals, as well as the Adam Sutler character that, as the film here continues, is seen in an ever-increasing dictatorial role. Today's fear-based television news is mirrored by the British television network and their spinning of viruses, plagues and pandemics, and Prothero's horrific rants wouldn't look out of place on far too many news networks to name. The Gunpowder Plot, Phantom of the Opera and The Count of Monte Cristo are also key influences throughout. V for Vendetta struck an immediate chord with me in 2005, and this is only heightened as the years have rolled on since its release. Yes, it strikes me as a highly prescient film reflecting the times in which we live, but also as an incredible achievement for a first-time director. Subversive, outspoken, and a clarion call to arms? Maybe. Or if you watch those news networks too long, just another damn immigrant terrorist on the loose. V for Vendetta is a towering achievement for a director McTeigue and a cinematic debut to be justly proud of. That was V for Vendetta from 2005, directed by James McTeigue. I wrote that over a decade ago. Blimey. 90%. I got through that difficult V passage very well, I thought. Couple of stumbles. I'm going to forgive myself. Have you been relaxing? Have you had your feet up? Did you have a second glass of wine? I certainly hope so. I also hope you opened that chocolate biscuit packet that I continually reference here. Go on, open them, treat yourself. We're actually at the end of the video, but still open them, who cares? Anyway, thanks very much for being there. Boy, this was a long one. What else do I have to say? Blimey, this film. It's 1984 on the screen. Surveillance society, back in the 80s, back in the 90s, and here we are in 2023, and it's writ large on our telly screens. That rectangular box of doom in the corner of the room. Blimey. There's an unseen war that we never see. It's the war against Oceania. Here we are on whatever it's called in 1984, I've already forgotten. Barking orders, 2 minutes of hate. Jesus. This really is the 1984 world. Now I'm rambling. Oh dear. Right, thanks very much for watching. I've been Stephen Blackford. I've rambled enough. And I've written. And read, pointless but heartfelt and spoiler-free film reviews since 2012. And I'll leave you in peace and in solidarity. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again soon, probably with a different angle again. And in the daytime, I might even re-record this. Who knows? Who cares? You don't. Just relax. Have a third glass of wine. Right, I'll leave you in peace. And solidarity again. That's how much I value your viewership. Blimey. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.